Test. Ooh, that's loud. That's why. It ain't no fun loving women the same age as your son. It ain't no fun loving women the same age as your son. This beat is funky. It ain't no fun loving women the same age as your son. It ain't no fun loving women the same age as your son. That beat was funky. Woo! That beat was funky. Ooh wee. Ooh. I gotta warm up. Ooh. Manny, what up, bro? That is a good question. Let me pause this so I can answer this because I get distracted really easily. Now, you have to constantly be cognizant of, like, you gotta almost I gotta say this. If everyone, if you're in a, it depends on the level of musicianship you're dealing with. If you're dealing with, like, for instance, if you're in a big band, it's gonna happen. You're gonna, it's almost like you're dragging a bunch of wild horses, and you're like the stage. Well, it's like you're a stagecoach driver, and like I've been in situations where it was like a 12-piece band. You had horn sections and all this stuff, and it's like you're whoa, whoa, because you're dealing with all these different perceptions of time. Um, um, but if you're in a small situation, like, you gotta flat out tell people, look, you gotta follow me, because if you're dealing with like a rock band, or you're dealing with a gospel group, or a praise and worship group, or a pop group, or whatever else, you really don't have to deal with it in jazz, depending on the musicianship. But yeah, open the door. I can't hear you. Huh? Yeah. Why? What's up? I'll be out in a little. Um, but it's two extremes, yes or no. It's if you're dealing with a high level of musicianship and they got their egos in check, then you don't have to worry about that. You can. That's why guys, you see guys in certain situations, they can just play drum solos, and the musicians, the whole, the other musicians, the bass player, the guitarist, the piano player, they can just be like dun 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 dun. And you can just just kind of mess around. But they their musicianship is at a point where they've worked with a metronome, they've practiced to a metronome, so they can hold it down. Dun, 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 2, 3, 4. Dun, 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 2. They can count in their head, and you could be playing something in 10, and it's still 2, 3, 4, or you can go it's 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You could literally be trying to throw them off, and they'll still be I know this, I used to do that. I used to look at the guys and try to throw them off. I playing like 17, 16 or something crazy. And they knew I was trying to throw them off. So they'd kind of be cracking up, like looking at me, smiling, like, yeah, we know what you're doing. But I've also been in situations where you have to literally remind people, like, guys, you're the bass player. Follow the bass drum. Like, or tell this, like, you got to tell everybody, listen to me. Like, I've been in situations where I've had to tell people, you need to go home and work with a metronome. Like, I don't care. Like, you got to be willing to be the bad guy. Sometimes you got to tell, like, dude, work with a metronome, bro. Like, I'm driving, like, I don't know what kind of time signature or whatever you're on, but people are nodding their head to my snare and my kick. They're not nodding their head to your guitar. They're not raging out. They're raging out to. They're not raging out to, you know what I mean? They're raging out to the groove, you know. So I've run into that, where it just depends on the level of musicianship. Now, I've been in situations where I've been in metal bands where everybody was tight. It like everyone was tight, you know, but it was really like just math kind of technical metal. So those guys, their musicianship tends to be a little higher. But and as far as easier or not, it's kind of like I said, it depends, man. Sometimes it's hard. It's hard depending on who you're playing with. If you're playing with a bunch of people do, who, this is the thing. If I'm gonna say this as a drummer, and I'm gonna say this, if anybody out there is a drummer, y'all feel me. We're here. We're eye to eye. Anybody else, y'all play guitar, y'all play bass. If y'all don't work with a metronome, y'all please work with a metronome. I don't care how fancy you play. I don't care. No, if you don't work with a metronome, you're no. Like you're a problem. Like you're a problem. And what's going to happen is if you really want to take it further, the producer or the engineer is going to be like, bro, go home and work with a metronome. You know, or if you're getting like really, really high level, they'll just replace you. So because it's nothing to get like a hired gun to come in and just be the new bass player. That's where you see a guy. A lot of times, guys, you see one lineup, and all of a sudden, the band just changes. Like the drummer's gone, or the bass player's gone, or somebody like that. It's usually because they can't. They're always high, and they can't control themselves, or they just can't play. You know what I mean? And especially nowadays, where everything is done in a DAW, and they want everything snapped to a grid, you got to be able to play, man. You got to be able to play. Your time has to be on point. I don't care if you're a guitarist. I don't care if you're a singer. I run into it with singers, and you know, if it's a young singer, a really young singer, I ask them, how far do you want to take this? Well, I want to do this and I want to. Okay, well, work with a metronome. Work with a metronome. Um, but yeah, and it's not just it's I've dealt with it with with gospel in gospel situations. I've dealt with it in neo soul, R&B. You know, I've dealt with it in a lot of situations, and it's just I don't I think people are so busy trying to hear themselves they don't realize the drummer's the metronome. You know, so no, Manny, you're exactly right. It depends on like yeah, yeah. It depends on the kind of musicians that you play with. You play with a high level of guys who play at a high level, they know enough to play with a metronome. If you're playing with guys who just, I don't care how, I've seen guys who shred. I mean, they shred. And their timing is just bad because they've worked on just shredding instead of actually working with a metronome. Um, what do you mean leaves from themselves? No, they do. Because the thing about it is, I'll say this: the thing about if you play at a high level, if you work on your chops and you work on your and that's this is just for everybody, for drummers, bass, guitar. If you work on your chops, you work like I've been in situations where and if you see somebody who plays at a high level, you recognize it easily. Like I've played. There was this girl, Mia Celino. She was a she was a guitarist, and I had to pull her to the side. I said, Mia, your timing is disgustingly solid. Like I said, you got drummer's timing. She said, oh, I used to play quads in school. I said, that's why. And if there was somebody else, I can't remember, who had incredible timing, and I told him, I said, I think it was a guy, and I was like, yo, bro, your timing, I gotta tell you, man, your timing is like is oh, this guy named Nick Leffler. I was like, bro, and well, he went to college. He played in the marching band, but he plays guitar, he plays piano, he sings, plays everything. Um, but I told him, I said, bro, I play with him regularly. I was like, bro, I am so glad you play drums. You make it easy. Like you're rock solid. Like I'll have him play percussion on his acoustic guitar, you know. Um, but it's just so easy because his timing is just rock solid. But he played drums in college. He played drums in high school and college. His father's a drummer, so he's got drummer's timing. You know, and you don't have to play drums to have drummer's timing. You just got to have time. You know, but when you hear it, you're like, oh, I can relax. As a drummer, you're like, oh, I can relax. I can do whatever. And then you can kind of you can create these kind of like inside jokes where if the bass player is solid, he'll just play something and then you'll kind of pick up on it. And then in the song, you're kind of throwing little call and responses back and forth. Like the guitarist might do something, then the bass player kind of mimic it in the song, and then I'll just mimic it rhythmically. In the song, there's like little like this like interplay. So, it doesn't take. Oh, we've been playing together for like 5 years. If you guys are like good, you kind of like, oh, okay, this is gonna be fun. We can kind of, I've gotten in situations where immediately I'm like looking at these guys like, oh, this is gonna be fun. You know what I mean? Like, and we might have like maybe 3 rehearsals, and that's just to familiarize ourselves with it. And then on the night of the gig, we're just kind of smoking. And people are like, "How long you guys been together?" Oh, we're just all hired guns. Like the guy hired us to do the gig. So yeah, it's that's when you can kind of just sit back and just enjoy the moment. You know. Yeah. Well, you were saying they try to they leave whatever. That's where I'll give you examples. Um, Whenever I create songs, the guys I know, they'll say I'll give them a blueprint, but I'll say do what you want. I don't have to micromanage them because they've been playing for so long and they have so much experience that I can leave things up to their own tastefulness, and they're gonna play something that enhances the music. Um, that's it. That's just that just comes with um, and you trust that the person's going to play for the music. But even if you're playing for the music, there's little things you can do. You know what I mean? Even just playing for the music. Um, so it's really respect the music. Res- Excuse me, respect the song, respect the music. Um, but even in that, you can kind of throw little things in there. Like I'll give you an example. Steely Dan. Oh man, I can't remember his name. He's a bass player. I can't remember his name, man. He played on Asia. He played on a bunch of Steely Dan songs. Can't remember his name. But when they did Peg, he played on Peg on Asia. He um he didn't want any slapping. Donald Fagen didn't want any slapping. But I saw this in an interview. Dag, his name is on the tip of my brain. But Rick Beato interviewed him, and Rick was like, he's like, yeah, well, what about when you guys did Peg? He said Don like slapping at the time was very popular, and he didn't want me to play any slap bass. But the first when he said that, I remember the bass. I remember the bass line going bum bap bum bap bum bap bum bap bum tum bum 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 bap bum bap bum bap. I was like, so when he said that, that's the first thing I thought, and I think well, Rick thought of the same thing. He was like, but the bass line you played was a slap bass line. He goes, yeah, I just kind of put it in there, under his nose, and he didn't realize it. So you could do things like that. Like there's another guy, Mark Craney. He's a drummer. He died. I think he died of cancer years ago, like in the '90s. But he was saying like when he plays or especially when he performs live, he has to realize that there are people coming there for him as well as even if it's not for him, they're coming there for the drummer. They want to see the drummer. They want to see the drummer do something. Um, so he said, I do little things to kind of satisfy those people. You know, and you got to be kind of slick with it, and you got to be tasteful with it. You know, um, but if as a musician you can kind of see like, oh, this guitarist and this drummer, they got something going on. Like, especially kind of like if your ears are really keen, you can be like, yeah, they're doing something. And it's not even their gig. It's somebody else's. It's like a singer's gig. And you're like, yeah, you could see. And then you kind of see the knowing glances at each other like, yeah, bro. You know, so there's there's little things you can do. You can still get it off, man. You just got to be tasteful. You can still get it off. You could get it off and not ruin the song. But if you can't play tastefully, don't don't do it. Don't. You gotta be really slick. You know. Um, I've heard dudes play. I've heard keyboard players play Mario Brothers. And the singer didn't even notice it. But there was a few people in the audience, like, you know, like, was he just playing like Donkey Kong or whatever, or Mario Kart, the Mario Kart theme? Like, what the heck? Like, it's kind of little things like that. So you got to be able to sneak it in. You know. I think the less is more thing. I think it's your approach. Well, I think it's what you're hired for. I've been hired. If somebody gives you somebody know you a bunch of songs, um, and I've been in situations like if it's just pocket, then it's just pocket. There's no there's no sense of, oh well, I'm just less is more. No, there's just pocket. If there's I'm playing the spaces, I just play the spaces. Like, I wish this thing had a mute button. Now, if you noticed, I went at one point. I went. Um, it's kind of like stuff like that. Like you're playing the spaces. You're playing the space between a boom, clap. You're playing that whole space. You're allowing that space to ring out. You know. So yes, that is a less is more, but I don't look at it as a less is more. I look at it as playing what's appropriate, because I've been in situations where I've I've been in situations where I've I've gotten hired for a gig, and then we did one rehearsal, and that's just because the guy, like, he knew that he trusted the guys he was with. And I figured it was going to be a one-off, but he kept like, yeah, well, I got a show in North Carolina, I got a show in Florida, I got a show. And at the time, I had three small kids. I was like, I can't do it, bro. Um, yeah, I did a couple. I did like maybe two or three gigs with him, but it was just too much travel at the time, and I was like, I couldn't. My kids were small. I think my oldest was like 7, something like that. Um, 6 or 7. Um, but on this gig, this saxophone player Larry Hurling, and he goes, Chuck Rainey. That's the guy who played for Steely Dan, Chuck Rainey. But Larry Hurling, um, what he did was, we had the one rehearsal at his house, and we're sitting there playing, and I'm warming up, and I find this out later. He goes, "Hey man, like, it was a 45-minute set, half-hour break, another 45-minute set. So the first 45 minutes set, I'm just keeping it pocket, keeping it grooving, keeping it pocket. And to be honest, most gigs, 99.9% of the time, I'm gonna assume to play pocket. I'm gonna keep it as simple and as in the pocket as possible. I can play chops. I can solo for 45. I can solo for an hour. I can just whatever. I can just vomit chop it out. But Pocket kind of it pays the bills. But back to Larry Hurling. We did the first 45 minutes, it was just pocket. We go back, we eating like, food. We got the little, you know, the little buffalo chicken, and they usually give you like the little finger food stuff, the little sandwiches and stuff like that. And we're eating, and he's like, "Hey, bro," he was like, "Man, I'm gonna be honest, man. When we were rehearsing at the house, I saw you warming up." He was like, "Oh man, this dude gonna be playing chops everywhere." He said, "Man, you play pocket. You're a pocket guy." And I said, "Yeah, that's generally that's what this gig requires, just pocket." So then after that, the second part, the guy kept throwing me solo after solo after solo. And as a drummer who likes to play chops, that would sound like, oh, that's a dream. Nah, man. Nah, man. It got like, all right, bro. Like I started running out of stuff to play. Like um, but like there would be, and I in hindsight, I get it now. He was tired of soloing, and he was like, okay, well, if the drummer he if the drummer can handle it, I'll just keep throwing solos at him because he doesn't have to play solos. He can relax and just kind of whatever, you know. So I would rather play pocket and keep it simple, and somebody tell me I want you to play more. Like for instance, there's another guy, Butch Caldwell. He's a keyboard player. I used to play with him. I played with him a lot. Like we did so many gigs. We did so. I might hit him up for some more gigs. But it was some years where that's all I did was like me and him. We just did gigs. And the first time we played together, um, I was playing. Oh, I just kept it simple. And then after the first song, he pulls me to the side. He's like, "Hey, bro, like you playing like you're embarrassed, or you like scared to play, or you playing shy, sheepish. What's going on? Like, come on, man. Like spice it up, man. This is why I hired you." I'm like, all right, So I'd rather play simple and have people say play more than it's kind of like you go to a banquet and you know the guy who's throwing a banquet, and he knows a lot of people. He invited all these people, but you just decide to walk up front and sit in the front like you're high and mighty. And then you'd rather sit in the back and have somebody say, sit up front, than sit up front and be like, man, you're not that important. I don't really know you like that. Go on the back, bro. This is my mama. So it's kind of like that. I'd rather just keep it simple, and that's with any gig. I'd rather keep it simple, um, and then kind of have somebody tell me to play more chops. Now I played in this one gospel group called the Godsend Project. That band was that band was disgusting. It was insane, man. We would just go on stage and just rip the stage. Every singer was lead singer material. The bass player was a jazz bass player. The keyboard player was a jazz keyboard player. Like it was insane. There were two keyboard players. One guy was like a gospel guy. The other guy was kind of like a jazz, classical, all kinds of stuff, as well as gospel. Um, but that band was just we. I remember we did a show. We did a live festival. It was for like the radio station V103 here in Atlanta, and we literally, I think we were third. We were like third or fourth on the bill. Um, so a couple other bands had gone on, like two or three other bands had gone on before us. We went up there. It was like it was like magic. Like we would just go and rip shows. it would just be like insane, you know. And then we would leave. It was like we would like rip it and just leave, and like people would be like, it was insane. I'm telling you, it was insane. Um, but yeah, so it was like situations like that where it's just like magic, where you know the band is so tight, everything's on point. It's just insane, you know. Those are those moments where you're like, yeah, you know. But he never really had the guy Jason. He was a Brazilian guy. He was Brazilian and African. He was like Brazilian and Senegalese. Um, so you had to kind of know your kind of world rhythm kind of thing. You had to kind of know world rhythms. But he would he was Brazilian and Senegalese, but he lived in London before he came to America. That was crazy. Um, so he had this weird Brazilian, British, African accent, which was it was weird. Um, but I played in a hip hop band like that too. You know, where it was just magic. You know, it was just magic. Um, but those are situations where you know there were certain gigs that we had to stick to the script. No extra, and nobody had to tell us. We just knew, you know. Um, but if it was just like one-offs or something like that, we would rip, you know. And then you know, like a festival or something like that, we would just rip it, you know. Um, but if it's like, you know, it's being recorded or whatever, they want it to sound as radio. They want it to sound as close to the radio as possible, and you kind of know, you know. So it just depends. It depends, and it's about how much wisdom and how tasteful can you be, you know. Because you could play less is more on everything, and people will be like, "Well, I'll hire somebody else." Well, why? I was just kind of toning it down. That's not what we want. We want you to chop it up, you know. And that you get a lot more gigs like that. You get a lot more gigs than you realize like that, you know. Poland, okay. All right, I'll be back, guys. I'm gonna go hang out with my daughter.